Everybody to the virtual public information meeting for Hardin Solar. We're going to wait a few more minutes for others to join, so please just hold on. Welcome, everybody. This is the virtual public information meeting for Hardin Solar. We're going to wait another minute or two for additional people to join, so please just hold on. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the virtual public information meeting for Hardin Solar. We're going to wait one more minute and allow other people to join, and we'll get started at about 6:03. Thank you. Okay, so welcome, everyone. This is the virtual public information meeting for Hardin Solar, an 85 megawatt solar farm project proposed for Hardin County, Kentucky. I am the Regional Development Director for Community Energy, which is the developer of this project. The format for tonight is going to be a presentation by the lead developer, who will be introducing the project in sections. And after each section, we will pause for questions that are either typed into the text box in the lower right of your screen, or the microphones will be open on the phone lines for anybody to ask a question live. The purpose of this meeting is to introduce the project and provide you information, but also to answer your questions. So please don't hesitate to ask questions during the presentation. Also, at the very end, we will have open the floor for questions and be happy to talk with you then. Again, for those of you that have logged in, there is a text box at the lower right of your screen where you can answer questions. You will also see some questions posted that you can add your support for by clicking the thumbs up button. So again, my name is Chris Killenberg. I'm the Regional Development Director for Community Energy. We are the developer of the project. Hardin Solar is a company we've formed specifically for the project, but Community Energy is the developer and owner of Hardin Solar at this time. I'm joined tonight by a number of people who I will introduce to you shortly, who will be able to answer specific questions, and the primary presenter will be Lauren Brunsdale, who is the developer of the project. Community energy is, let me switch to some slides here. Community energy has been in the solar business for roughly 20 years and has developed both solar and wind projects across the country, 19 different states. We are focused on doing things correctly, being a good neighbor, working closely with local partners to support the community in the course of doing our projects. And I think most importantly, we care about what we're doing. We want to do it correctly. We're interested in feedback and collaboration with the communities that we're involved in. We've done many projects successfully, similar to this one that we're proposing here. And in general, we enjoy a good reputation in the market and in the industry. So our presenters here tonight will be include experts that have advised us on this project. Marty Marcheterre from Copperhead Environmental Consulting. Marty's been working with us on a number of projects across the state. As a company, they've been in business for 16 years, and they have headquarters in Paint Lick and offices in other parts of the state as well. Also, Josh Valentino is a geologist at Terracon. Terracon advised us on geotechnical issues, including karst issues, and Josh is here to answer any questions in that regard. Terracon is a multidiscipline company that has offices across the country, and we've worked with Terracon on many other projects as well. Rich Kirkland from Kirkland Appraisals has been advising us on the property value impact of our projects, how we can design our projects to minimize any adverse effects on neighboring properties, and also is an expert on solar farms and their relationship to property and property values across the region. Rich is based in North Carolina and has been in business in 17 years and is also a certified general appraiser in the state of Kentucky. So the outline for the presentation will be tonight, the introduction, which I've just given, and then Lauren Brunsdale, who is the lead developer for the project, will walk you through the project in a couple different sections. And as I said, we'll stop along the way to answer any questions that come up, and then we'll also stop at the end to answer your questions then too. So I'm turning Lauren's camera on so you can see her, and I will turn the floor over to you, Lauren.
Thank you, Chris, and hello. I hope everyone can hear and see me well. Again, I'm the lead developer on the project, and I'm also the lead contact. I've been working in the community for over a year and a half now, and one thing that I'd reiterate that Chris said is that we like to have a lot of feedback on the project, and if you have any questions or want to talk about any element of the project, my contact information is at the end of the presentation, and we're really happy to pass that out and get your feedback. I'm going to turn my camera off as I walk through different slides on the project, so you can see the full screen, and my audio is still on. So I'm going to walk us through the description of the project. And to start out and reiterate what Chris had already said, the Hardin Solar project is a proposed 85 megawatt solar project, which will produce enough energy to power roughly 16,000 homes. The project site is located on approximately 650 acres across 6 different parcels, and the project will connect to an East Kentucky Power Co-op transmission line, which means that the electricity will go into their system to be distributed to the nearest load. East Kentucky Power Co-op, also known as EKPC, is a supplier to Nolan Rec, which is a distribution level supplier in the area. And the project is broken into 2 main areas, one section along North Long Grove Road and another section along South Long Grove Road, which I will talk about in detail later in the presentation. So one key question we get a lot is why Hardin County, and why did we come to Kentucky specifically? So there are some states that mandate a certain amount of energy in their state should be solar, but Kentucky is not one of those states. So in Kentucky, solar is only being developed in the state if it's cost competitive with other forms of electricity. And today, with advances in the industry and the size of the projects, solar is a competitive form of electricity in Kentucky. And that's why solar is entering the market here. The second reason, why we're in Hardin County specifically is Hardin County is a unique area in the state because there are two overlapping utility territories here. And that means that there's twice as much of transmission lines than you would find in a typical area. And when siting a solar project, the first thing you have to look at is access to a transmission line with available capacity to allow us to produce affordable, reliable power. And then the next part of that is finding suitable land that can host a solar project. And the third part of siting a project is willing landowners. And that's really the most important part of a project as well, is we reach out to the community in a really broad way at first and receive input from different landowners that are interested, and we move forward with those landowners. So the next piece I'd like to talk about is what is a solar project? And so essentially a solar project is an area, it's a power plant, and it's the main component of it is a solar panel. And solar panels are about 3 by 5 feet, and they're either dark or colored or blue in their tint. And a solar project is just a whole lot of solar panels bolted to a racking system and placed in a field. And they'll operate for 30 years with no audible noise or smell, and really minimal maintenance. So next, I'm going to talk through various components of a solar project. And the first component of a solar project is a solar panel. And modern crystalline silicon PV panels, photovoltaic panels, are a simple technology made of solid-state materials. These panels are slightly larger versions of the panels that are on homes and commercial rooftops all across the country. This technology has been around for a long time. It's been around since the 70s. And most importantly, there are no hazardous materials in any modern solar voltaic panels. Crystalline solar panels are primarily composed of tempered glass, plastic, and aluminum. And all three of those materials are highly recyclable materials. Again, they are solid state, much like a semiconductor, and they contain no liquids. This technology has been in large-scale commercial use throughout the U.S. and globally for over 20 years. And studies show that they pose no risk of toxicity to the public health and safety, and they're certified by EPA's toxicity characteristics leach procedure test. And you can see here with Amy out in the field, all facilities are touch safe when you're inside them. So it's a touch safe technology. One advancement in solar panel technology in really the last 5 years is we now have bifacial panels, which just means that they removed the metal backing of the panel so that the panel can absorb light directly from the sun above and any light that's reflected off of the grasses below. The next component of a solar panel or solar project is the racking. So the proposed Hardin Solar project will have a single axis tracking system. And what that means is that the panels will slowly track the sun from east to west over the course of the day, kind of like a young sunflower. And at night, when the sun goes down, the panels will put themselves to bed and lay flat. And the next Yeah, let's see. So the next key component of any solar project and an element of the racking is the space between the rows and posts and the ground cover beneath it. Racking is installed first by driving a post 7 to 10 feet deep, and then the racks are screwed on top and the panels are screwed to those. The posts that you see here on the image on the right, all of those posts are I-beam posts. So at the end of the life of the project, you can unscrew the panels, unscrew the racking, and then pull the posts back up throughout the whole facility. Solar panel rows are designed to be roughly 25 to 30 feet apart, as you can see on the left-hand side, and then the individual posts sit 15 to 20 feet apart. And this ensures that the system can track with the natural topography of the land, and it also allows for a robust ground cover to receive adequate sunlight and in between the panels. And only about a third of the land within a fenced area will have a row of panels rotating over it. The next component of a solar system are the inverters. And the solar power produces low voltage DC power, and an inverter changes that power from DC power to AC power, the same as used in your home. And the inverters are the only components of the solar project that produce audible noise because they have a cooling fan. And then this noise is the same as a standard window air conditioner. And so because of that slight noise, all inverter stations are located within the interior of the project at a minimum distance of 800 feet from any home, so that they are undetectable from the perimeter of the project. And we'll go into a noise study that we did to back that up as well. And so another piece of the project are transformers. Now these you have likely seen. They typically look like a small green box at the corner of your driveway. I know out in Cecilia they're more rectangular shaped than in the square one in this picture. But these transformers, they step up or step down the power depending on if the power is going into your home or if it's going onto the grid. Another common place to see a transformer is along any power pole on pretty much every road. If you see a box up on some power poles, that little box up there is a transformer. Another component of a solar project is the project substation. This project will include a substation as the last stop before we connect onto the EKPC power line. The substation will roughly be 150 by 200 feet. The substation will need to be surrounded by a fence, similar to all the other substations in the area. Unlike the other substations in the area, though, we will plant a vegetative screening buffer around this substation, so it will be screened from both the road and any neighboring residences. Another key component of the project is a security fence. And for the Hardin Solar project, we're looking at doing an agricultural style fence like the ones in the image here. The top image is from a project down in Virginia, and then on the bottom left, a project in Pennsylvania, and on the right, a project in Minnesota. And an agricultural style fence in this use case is just a wooden post with woven wire. The purpose of this fence is generally to keep people out. Not everything within the system is touch safe at all times, but it's just best to keep people out if they're curious or want to vandalize anything, which is extremely uncommon at any site. But it is a requirement to have a fence around the system. And then another key component of any solar project is the ground cover. So with our ground cover at all all projects in the East Coast and the South is a low-growing prairie-type seed mix variation, and the typical seed mix for a solar farm includes fescue and clover varieties. Each mix is specific to the region of the project, but establishing a strong ground cover is an important part of every project as it helps capture rainwater and allows that to infiltrate into the ground. Meadow grass is also significantly absorbent, and the combination of a really strong sod and minimal impervious surfaces throughout the solar project help to reduce runoff in the general area. Another element in relation to ground cover that we've been working on at various projects is in many of our projects we plant a mix of pollinator-friendly plants and native grasses to provide habitat for pollinator species and birds. And at 2 of our projects, we have actually partnered with local bee farmers to host beehives on site to support their business. We are also currently testing a rotational sheep grazing program on a few of our other sites, and we expect that will have influenced future maintenance management processes for our sites. I will note that based off of community feedback, sheep grazing is not currently planned on site on the Hardin project, but we will be we are currently planning our pollinator planting zones. And last night at the in-person meeting, we did pass out some solar honey. So I know the community is thinking about our pollinator plantings there. The final component of any solar project is our professional landscaping. So as part of the permitting process, the county is requiring us to, border the project area with double row evergreen plantings. And the design of that is specifically tailored to where we are in the project. We have been working with neighbors of the facility since May of this year to design a really robust landscaping plan for the project. And wherever existing natural vegetation does not exist between the solar project and nearby houses or roads, a double row of evergreen trees is planned to be planted. We are continuing to work on this, and we have been seeking a lot of feedback from the community. So you will notice in some of our maps that they keep evolving as we get more feedback, which has been really helpful to the design process. So I'm going to stop there to see if we have any questions from the community, and I'll pass it back out to Chris.
Sure. And if there's anybody on the phone and you have a question, I believe the phone lines are open, so you can ask a question. And those of you logged in can type a message in the message box in the lower right of your screen. One question that I know was asked a lot at last night's public meeting was about stormwater and runoff. This part of Hardin County is relatively wet. And so, Lauren, maybe you could go into both the studies that you're doing to analyze the potential runoff, and also how the ground cover we plan might compare to what's in those fields at this current moment.
Right. Yeah, so as part of the permitting process, we do both a hydrology study and drainage analysis. And in both that study and the drainage plan are reviewed by the county engineer. The grass that is planted beneath these projects is a mix of a meadow grass. And when you look at runoff and hydrologic characteristics of ground cover, meadow grass has a much a significantly more absorption number than a standard row crop. And so the combination of dense meadow type grass with primarily permeable surfaces throughout the array do show a decrease equal to or better than the current runoff rates within the system. And we're definitely very sensitive to the concern in the community about flooding, and we've heard a lot of questions about that. And I feel very confident in the fact that the project will, have adequate ground cover to address those concerns.
Okay, I don't see any.
Do you have anything you would add to that, Chris?
No, I think you've covered that well. I think the important message for the community to hear is that we will professionally analyze the hydrology of the site, and that will involve the county and other third parties, and that the ground cover that we intend to put in under the system should be as absorptive or more than the row crops that are there now. So the full expectation is that we'll do it right, and that we won't make matters worse, and hopefully will improve the drainage in the area. I think those are the important messages that the community should hear. I don't see any other questions, so why don't you proceed into the next section?
Okay, great. So now I'm going to talk through the project site specifically. And again, I want to remind the audience that community engagement and feedback is really important to us, and we incorporate that feedback into our project design. And as mentioned earlier, you may notice that there have been some changes in the layout that are presented here and at the public meeting. And those changes are primarily coming from feedback from our landowners and neighbors to the project. And we will continue to update the website and the layouts of the project with all that public input that we're receiving. This presentation is also being recorded and will be posted on the website if you want to review it later or share it with anyone. So the project site is comprised primarily of two sections along North and Long Grove Road. It really runs in a chain of different parcels. 6 different farming families are participating in the project through voluntary long-term lease agreements and easement agreements. And 4 of the 6 participating parcels that will be hosting solar panels plan to continue an active crop rotation or livestock grazing on land that will not be part of the solar project. We're also, as mentioned earlier, in the process of planning our pollinator planting zones, which we hope to distribute throughout the project area. And on this map, you can actually see where we're beginning some preliminary discussions on those pollinator planting zones. Those are highlighted in pink. The solar panels will be set back from public roads by at least 100 feet in alignment with the existing ordinances in Hardin County. And we also plan to set back from neighboring residences by at least 500 feet, which is about 2 football fields. And on average, we're set back even further than that from the majority of homes. And that 500 feet number, that really comes from our experience of a setback that allows a respectful distance from any home while also still allowing us to efficiently use the field. The fenced area of the project, so that's about 650 acres, that represents about 0.1% of the total acres in Hardin County and 0.5% of the farmland. So it's a very small percentage of the farmland that would be part of this project. This is the southernmost area of the project down by Western Kentucky Parkway and South Long Grove Road. Here you can see where the solar arrays are planned and our setbacks from homes. The pink circles that you see on this image, it's a 500-foot buffer off of any home. And the green dots on this picture, those are representative of the double row of evergreen trees that are planned. Again, we sent out mailers to all adjacent homes and adjoining landowners back in May of this year, and have had many ongoing conversations with neighbors about the setbacks and the visual screening plans throughout the area. This is if you travel just north of that southern section, so we're still along South Long Grove Road. This, again, the pink circles is a 500-foot radius from any existing home. You can also see the vegetative buffer that is planned. And the access point is the only access point in this southern array area is planned at the existing access point up by where the grain bins sit. The gray box in the northern to the top of this picture, that is where the substation is planned. And that's also in this next middle section. So this is a little bit further north than what we just looked at. Now we're at South Long Grove and 62, that intersection. Again, we are set back over 500 feet from any home. There will be there's a small array planned for this field, but the majority of this field will stay in active crop rotation. And the right side of the field that's shaded a little bit darker, that's where there was wheat planted earlier this year. Now, and then we also have another smaller array just north of 62, but we are not going to have any access points off of 62 because we know that that's a really fast moving road. So that access point will be on the slower section of North Long Grove. So now we are on the North Long Grove Road section of the array. Again, we have 500-foot setbacks from all of the homes, and we're making sure that we have vegetative screening in place where there are homes and not an established tree line along the roadway. This is our northernmost section of the project. This is completely off of the road frontage. And again, set back from the existing homes. The homes that are within are on participating parcels. We're set back from those homes as the landowner requests. And so that is all the way through the project. Now, one other key element that we've been working on here as we're working with neighbors and community members on screening plans are visual renderings of those landscaping plans. And the visual renderings of the project are produced using a 3D model of the site that takes into account the natural topography of the land and the actual dimensions of the solar equipment and vegetative screening plantings. And so the image you're looking at here is back down on South Long Grove Road, right when you cross over the bridge, when you go over the parkway. This is looking from the street view out. And this is a 5-year simulation. So the trees have some growth height, but we're not looking at 30 years. By 30 years, this will be a wall of dense evergreen trees. But, we're making sure that our initial planting height in the species that are planted are fast growing, and we'll really robustly screen the project over the life of the project. here is a second view. Actually, one more comment on the first view. There's going to be continued crop rotation behind these trees based off of neighbor feedback. We were asked to pull the trees off of the project fence line and up to the road rather than having them back at the fence line. And so we've made that change, and there's enough acreage in between the fence line and the road that's going to continue being cropped. This is further up South Long Grove, and in this case, this section of the field is also going to continue to be cropped. In the event that corn is planted, you can't see it at all. So we took the corn off of this one. So assuming this is beans would be planted, that's a view you can see of a 5-year view of plantings. And again, over time, that tree line will just get denser and taller. So are there any questions about the project site?
So Lauren, I'll jump in, and if anybody has a question, speak up or type it in. But while that may be going on, you mentioned that the project site will occupy roughly 0.5% of the farmland in Hardin County. And I know the loss of farmland is a concern, but you want to talk a little bit about the fact that we're not actually losing the farmland, that it will be returned later, and that the condition it will be in should be equal or better to what it is today. And just make the point that this is a temporary use of the land, not a loss of farmland.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as we talk through how a solar project is constructed, which we do go through a little bit later on in the slides, and there's a good picture of a project that's under construction. But as I was just saying, with the racking and the posts, there's no concrete footings that are put in for all of those posts. So at the end of the life of the project, you pull out the post, you unscrew the racking, you screw off the panel, and the only permeable or impermeable surfaces that are placed out within the project area are small concrete pads to sit underneath the inverters, and those are removed as well. So there's very minimal long-term ground disturbance through the construction process and through the life of the project. Through the life of the project, we are maintaining the vegetation in and around the panels so that it's a healthy ground cover. And that field is laying, is having that robust sod on it through those 30 years. Another key element about returning the land to farming is we put a decommissioning bond in place before the project even goes into construction to ensure that at the end of the life of the project will be responsibly decommissioned. No matter what happens, there's 3 levels of protection for the landowner and community. So it is first our obligation to decommission the project. If anything happens to us, then the county has access to that money. If anything happens to the county, then the landowner has access as well. And that decommissioning bond will be refreshed every 5 years. It will be held by the county, and there will be a decommissioning plan put in place as well that essentially sets out the recipe of how you have to how you properly decommission the entire site. And so our landowners are protected that their land will be returned to them equal to or better than we found it at the end of the life of the project, and the county is protected as well, which is really important.
That sounds good. I don't see any other questions, so unless anybody on the phone wants to ask a question, I'd say let's move to the next section, please.
Okay. So The next section that we're going to talk about are studies. We have conducted many studies as part of the development process of this project. The first study or phase of studies are interconnection studies. This solar project will connect to an East Kentucky Power Co-op transmission line, and EKPC is part of a regional network running from Kentucky all the way up to Pennsylvania, Ohio, and the East Coast with New Jersey. So it's this whole mid-Atlantic region that is managed by what's called the PJM interconnection, known as PJM. And PJM studies the proposed facility within that larger system to determine whether the existing transmission lines in the area can absorb this additional power or if they need to be upgraded. And any required upgrades will be paid for by the project. So we've had all of our initial studies done, and we have a few more in process. And we have positive results that there is enough room on that line, and any required upgrades we will pay for as the project. The next set of studies are environmental studies. And so multiple environmental studies have already been conducted within the project area. These studies are conducted via third-party environmental consultants and engineers. And these studies are really important because they allow us to identify any resources at the front end that should be protected. And we can design our solar project in a way that avoids and minimizes any impacts to sensitive features on the site. And so some of the conclusions from the studies that have taken place, one, wetlands and streams eligible for protection have all been identified, and any setbacks needed, they have been designed to assure protection. And part of the wetland and streams delineation process that takes place because the Army Corps of Engineers is in charge of the waters of the United States and the maintenance and protection of wetlands and streams as waters of the United States. And those wetlands and streams have a technical definition. And so we bring on consultants like Copperhead to go out and flag what they believe meets the definition of a jurisdictional aquatic feature. And then they meet with the Army Corps of Engineers to see if the Army Corps agrees or would modify, add, or subtract anything. And the end result is a clearly identified set of wetland and stream features that inform our project layout and ensure that our design allows for full protection of those resources. Another element are floodplains. Any floodplains that are eligible for protection, those are identified as well, and we design setbacks to assure protection there. Cultural resources. We have done multiple rounds of cultural resource studies for this project. What that means are any architectural features in the area or archaeological features in the area. A in-depth review of historical resources is conducted for the project area, and we have also done a field survey of sections of the project where scientists go out in the field and they walk a grid to verify the location of any archaeologically sensitive resources. So those studies have been conducted, and any sensitive features, again, we've designed setbacks and taken avoidance measures to assure protection of those. Additional studies that have taken place are threatened and endangered wildlife habitat assessment. That identified some potential bat species in the area, and we followed up with an additional bat survey that identified that there were no at-risk bats roosting within our project site. A sandhill crane impact assessment has also been completed, and the conclusion of that study was that there was no significant impact on the sandhill crane population within the study area due to the project. We've also had many geologic studies conducted. One of those is the identification of any karst feature. A karst feature, the colloquial term would be sinkholes. We know that we are in a karst region of Kentucky, and so we've taken great care to identify all and every karst feature within the site, and also make sure we have a deeper understanding of the exact type of karst feature that we're looking at. All of those features are being set back from. We've designed specific setbacks to assure protection from those features. Again, design level geotechnical analysis has been completed, and that includes various soil sampling, and Josh can go into it more, but there's a lot of detail of what goes into those geotechnical studies. I'm taking up a lot of time here, but next we have a list of studies, and Marty can go into detail on any of these, or Rich Kirkland from Kirkland Appraisals. But as part of the state permitting process, we also have a series of permitting studies that we have conducted. One of those is the cumulative environmental assessment. We've also completed a traffic and rail study to look at, both to understand the anticipated traffic through the life of the project and also through the construction of the project. The traffic that's expected during the construction phase of the project, which is a 6 to 9 month period, is very similar to that that you would expect during a typical harvest season. So it's nothing above and beyond that, really. And then during the life of the project, it's just a few trucks periodically that would be very similar to current farm access to the sites. We've also conducted an economic impact study to understand the direct and indirect benefits of the project to the area. And we have also looked at a property value study. That property value study finds that with solar projects, when they are done right, when they have good setbacks and vegetative screening, there is no positive or negative impact to property values within the vicinity of a project. And that study has reported that there are no hazardous materials or odors associated with solar projects. There's no instances of audible sounds at the periphery of a solar project. There's minimal traffic associated with the operation of a solar project, because the anticipated full-time workers at any project is only 2 to 3 workers during the operational phase of a project. And with the enhanced setbacks and buffers, there's no long-term negative visual impact of the solar project. And if you have any questions about that, we have an expert on the call that you can ask those questions of. Next, we have the professional landscaping plans, which I talked about earlier, and those visual renderings that are done with the really accurate 3D model. 2 other studies that I wanted to go through in a little bit more detail is the acoustical analysis, and then also the glare study that's been completed. With this study, it's been concluded that the enhanced setback distances between the project and neighboring residences diminishes any audible sounds leaving the solar farm. And again, the only the only components of a solar project that make noise are those inverters, and that's the similar noise as an air conditioning unit. And so as you move away from that, that sound dissipates really quite significantly to the extent that you can't hear it outside of a project. And I've also walked along quite a few solar projects now, and I can say that from my personal experience that, you really cannot hear them at all unless you are right up close to them. So the last study I wanted to walk through is the glare analysis. We have conducted a glare study for the project, and for that, both all neighboring residences and then also roads are evaluated for any impact of glare. And that study concludes that there's no glint or glare that will negatively impact nearby residences or roadways. I would also like to note that we have already received approvals from the Federal Aviation Administration and the Kentucky Airport Zoning Commission that there is no proposed risk or hazard to any air traffic because of glare. So again, solar panels themselves, their whole purpose is to capture light. And so the way that they do that, it does not cause any significant glare. All right, and we'll stop there to see if we have any questions.
Sure. Let you catch your breath as well.
Thanks.
Any questions from the audience? Maybe just briefly sticking with an environmental theme, you want to talk a little bit about the pollinator species plantings you are proposing? Yeah,
so we're still working on our final seed mix for this area, or proposed seed mix. There are quite a few seed companies that put together solar specific seed mixes that obviously are beneficial to bees and butterflies. I don't have the specific seed mix off the top of my head, but we're happy to share more information on that. I know Tom, who is on this call, has helped us a lot on our pollinator plantings, and so he may be a good resource to chime in on that. Tom, I saw that you unmuted yourself.
I think Chris unmuted me. Thank you.
Oh, good.
So the idea is that we are trying to put in grasses that are both going to enhance soils through the depth of the root system and actually over time improve soil, but then the plants that are growing be friendly to all kinds of pollinators. We're actually more concerned with native pollinators than we are with commercial bees, because native pollinators help everyone in the surrounding area for 10, 15 square miles. And what we're trying to do is to have something that'll be in bloom all throughout the season, so that that pollinator that you may think of as a bee or a butterfly or a hummingbird always has something to go to eat. And as I'm on the line now, I'm actually looking out my window to my own bees that I use to make sure that I'm continuing to learn what we apply to our projects. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Okay, seeing no other questions, why don't we forge ahead into the permits discussion?
Okay, great. So there are two levels of permitting that this project is going to go through. It will go through a local permitting process through the county, and then a state permitting process. And at the county level, solar is allowed in the county through a conditional use permitting process. The project will go before the County Planning Commission for a full site plan review. And that process ensures that we are abiding by the design specifications that are in alignment with the existing county ordinances. Now, we recognize that Hardin County does not have a solar specific ordinance, but we work with counties and local, local planners across the country and to put ordinances in place quite often. And so we have a lot of experience in understanding what kind of design specification should go into a project to make sure that it's really designed well to be compatible with the community and to be respectful of the community. And so we are abiding by the best standard that we have seen time and time again across both other counties in Kentucky, but really across the country. And I think that's reiterated when you look at earlier in the presentation as we were stepping through sections of the project. We are looking to have really robust setbacks from homes at no less than 500 feet, which is about 2 football fields away. So there's a lot of specific choices that we're making with our project to make sure that it's designed in a really robust way for this community, and constantly seeking feedback from neighbors and landowners and general community members on that. The next phase of permitting is the state permitting process. And the state of Kentucky, Commonwealth of Kentucky, they require that any facility greater than 10 megawatts goes through a special review process through the state siting board. And since our project is 85 megawatts, we'll therefore go through this additional permitting review. And the state siting board process, the key elements of what it's looking to review are: 1, environmental matters that aren't automatically triggered by existing state processes, as I mentioned with wetlands and Army Corps of Engineer. 2, the economic impacts of the project. And 3, the impacts of the proposed facility on the electrical grid. And the state siting board is convened by the Public Service Commission, and that board will include 3 members of the Public Service Commission, 2 members of the state government, and 2 members of the local government. We have started that process, and as you can see on this slide, we have our case number listed. The overall process with the state siting board takes about 9 months. And the first phase of that process are public information sessions, just like this one and the one we hosted last night, to continue getting feedback on the project so we can make it the best for the community. The next phase of the process is submitting an application. And once we submit that application, a few months after that will be our public hearing. And through that public hearing, there's multiple opportunities for public input in that process. And if anyone has questions on that process, Chris is really our in-house expert on that process, and I'd love to have him speak to those questions.
Sure. Yeah, I think the important point to know is that Hardin County does have local representation on this siting board, that typically the judge executive and a member of the planning commission, not always, but that's typically the case, will be a part of the siting board and will be able to relay local concerns and questions and a sense of the local attitude towards the project. So even though it's a state process, I think the community, should know that you are well represented by design. Also, it's an iterative process. There's lots of information that will be in the public sphere, from the application to the data requests and the question and answer back and forth between us and the siting board, all of which is accessible through the Public Service Commission website using the case number you see on the screen. And so you can really follow along on what we're saying and what we're being asked and the challenges that people are making to the project. And it's all done in the public sphere and wide out in the open. So please feel free to participate or at least observe the process through the public means. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, why don't you proceed, Lauren?
Okay, great. So now we're just going to go over a few slides about the construction process of a project and the operation phase of a project. So this project, if the construction certificate is approved, construction will either start in late 2023 or in 2024. The construction period will be 6 to 9 months and will create approximately 205 construction jobs. Those construction jobs are primarily hired from local trades: electricians, surveyors, earth movers, fencing, and landscaping. And the way that solar projects are constructed, as mentioned previously, is first posts are driven into the ground 7 to 10 feet, depending on the exact topography of that location. Then the racking system is bolted to the posts. Then the solar panels are attached to the rack. Then the solar project inverters and transformers and electrical will be installed. And then at the end, the field is reseeded to ensure that healthy ground cover. The example that you see on your screen here is actually a picture during construction of our Keystone Solar project in Pennsylvania. And as you can see, their ground cover exists through the construction process. Now, the construction process isn't perfect, and certainly some areas will need to be reseeded. But I think it's important to note that, again, the whole design of the solar system is a really minimal impact form of land use. Next, for the operation and maintenance phase, for a typical project, there's a mowing contract put in place to maintain the vegetation. We do have a few test sites where we are doing a rotational sheep grazing program. But regardless of how the vegetation is maintained, it must be maintained because we don't want the grass to get so tall that it would shade any panel. And so there's that seasonal mowing. I said seasonal grazing again, but seasonal mowing of the system. The other types of care for the facility during its operation is preventative maintenance. So annual checkups and biannual checkups on the system, and then repair if there is any damage on the system. And our interests are aligned with the community's interests that we want it up and running all of the time, and we want it in really good form. And the system is monitored so that if any section of the array went out, the operations team would know that and be able to go fix that specific problem. The project will require 2 to 3 full-time employees for that operation and maintenance phase. Another thing to note is that within the project area sits on parcels that are going to continue active crop rotation and grazing on the areas that are outside of our fenced solar arrays. So that's something to note, that annual the seasonal traffic during harvest to harvest those crops, that will still take place as well. So just like Chris's question earlier, one key element of this is what happens at the end of the life of the project. And so we make sure that we have a decommissioning plan put in place before the project even begins construction, and make sure that protections are in the leases with all of our landowners to ensure that the land can be restored for future farming at the end of the life of the project. And the decommissioning process includes, first remove all above ground and below ground equipment, including complete removal of the post. When this says below ground equipment, that's referring to any cables that are within the solar facility. They're buried underground. And then again, restoring the land to farmable conditions. A key element of the decommissioning plan is that a financial surety is put in place with the county to ensure that no matter what, the money is there at the end of the day to decommission the project. And that bond amount is determined by an independent engineer and provided to the satisfaction of the local municipality, which in this case is Hardin County. And that decommissioning cost estimate is updated every 5 years by a Kentucky professional engineer, so that the bond amount is in compliance with what would be needed over time. And then, the land at the end of the life of the project, once the project is decommissioned, it can return to farming or whatever use the landowner wants to do with their land at that time. Another key element of any solar project is that there's really no local infrastructure burden during the operation of the project. Solar panels don't go to school, so they pay taxes, but they do not add any new bodies and seats in schools, and there's no need for water or sewer. There are no new roads required by the towns or the county. Most road entrances for this project are existing farm entrances, so there's really very minimal changes from the road perspective. I'll also note that during construction, we will put a bond in place with the county to protect those county roads that we'll be using. And then finally, a long-term benefit, there's a lot of community benefits from solar projects. So on the front end, there will be construction jobs for local workers during the 6 to 9 month construction phase of the project. And we understand that in order to keep those jobs local, it's important for us to do lots of outreach to figure out, the companies in the area that those jobs would be applicable to. A lot of the construction jobs require very minimal training, and so making sure that the Economic Development Office is well aware of when those job opportunities open up. Usually, prior to construction, there will be a job fair hosted to again make sure that the community is really aware of the opportunity. And we've actually had quite a bit of outreach from local contractors, making sure that we have their name and we can provide that list at the time of construction of who to reach out to for different local businesses that can contribute to the construction. And if anyone on the line has more recommendations of names to add to that list, we're very open and excited to continue gathering that information so that we can keep as much of the benefit local as possible. The other element of an economic impact for the construction phase of the project is there will be local spending during construction. and that impacts local hotels, restaurants, shops, and entertainment. From a long-term perspective, there's significant long-term tax revenue that's generated from this project. Because the solar facility will be sitting on land that's currently taxed for agricultural production, once the solar project is on that land, the tax revenue to the county will be 9 to 10 times the amount that's currently paid on it. In addition to that, so we're paying taxes both on the land, but then taxes on the equipment as well. So it's a very significant amount of taxes to the local community over the life of the project, without any increased pressure on community services. As mentioned earlier, the full-time jobs for the facility, we expect about 2 to 3 full-time operation and maintenance jobs. And in summary, one quote we like is that in a single hour, the amount of solar power that strikes the earth is more than the entire world consumes in a year. And so this project, gives Hardin County a unique opportunity to capture some of that solar power and convert it to usable electricity and deliver it to the local community at a competitive price. We have made a lot of effort, and we will continue to reach out to the community, but it's important to us to develop a project that's respectful to our neighbors and delivers multiple benefits to the greater Hardin County community. We always invite questions and comments and feedback, and want to make this project the best project it can be for the community. And with that, I think we'll go into a question and answer session, and then we have some contact information at the end. And I'll pass it back to Chris, but I believe you're on mute, Chris.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Thank you for your presentation, Lauren. Are there any questions from anybody on the phone or on the interface? So just to reinforce that we are interested in your feedback, in your attention. And so one of the sources of information you see here on the screen is the project-specific website. There's also a phone number here for those of you in the community. I think there are quite a few people who know Lauren personally and can connect you to her. We are always open for questions and inquiries, and hope that you will pay close attention and express your concerns and suggestions and help us make this the best project it can possibly be. If there are no other questions, I think we'll say thank you for your interest and have a good evening.